everyone, I'm Bruce Rosard. I'm one of the co-founders of Arrival and co-hosts of Experience This. This is show number 20 on Niche OTAs, and it's going to be a great show. And welcome to today's podcast.
Everyone, I'm Lori Timoney, also one of the co-hosts of Experience.This.Travel show and with Virgin Experience Gifts.
And I'm Christian Watts, founder of Magpie. Excited to talk about OTAs. I feel like that's all I used to talk about a couple of years ago, but I've been talking about Google and AI recently, so I'm excited to come back for this discussion.
And these are different OTAs than you usually talk about, Christian. So let's hear a really quick intro from each of our guests today, starting with you, Melanie.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I'm the Executive Vice President at Virgin Experience Gifts. We are a reseller of tours, activities, and experiences, specifically in the gifting space. So a bit of a unique customer base that we have.
Great, welcome. And Rachel, tell us about yourself and TripShock.
I'm Rachel Dickey, the Chief Strategy Officer for TripShock, and we are an OTA that specializes in water sports and boating activities, primarily in the southeastern U.S. for now, but we do hope to expand on that.
Great. And Jonathan, who had, for those of you who didn't see it, an awesome talk at our conference in Vegas, the Arrival conference in Vegas this past October. Jonathan, tell us about you and Captain Experiences.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. Jonathan Newar, co-founder and CEO of Captain Experiences. We are a platform for booking outdoor sports guides, focused first on fishing.
Focus first on fishing? What else are you focused on?
Yeah, so we plan to expand across all outdoor sports and geographies. So hunting, fishing, hiking, rock climbing, skydiving, rafting, you name it. I feel like we're just getting started with fishing.
Great. New news for me.
So you won't be as much of a niche OTA then, Jonathan.
Well, we want to focus on outdoor sports and doing things there. So sort of all of these off the map guided experiences.
So more like adrenaline adventures is
yep.
Maybe comparable,
definitely
right?
Fair. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's still a niche versus the big guys of Viator, Get Your Guide, TUI, etc., Klook, right?
Yep.
So why don't
Bruce, are you going to start with a definition then? You love your definitions. Maybe you need to define niche.
I was going to let our guests do that, although I think niche is easier than dynamic pricing,
Let's see.
We defined on show 19 and had some fun with that. I'm going to have you, Rachel, start off since you've been at TripShock for a while, certainly a niche OTA. How do you look at it from the TripShock perspective, especially compared to the large global OTAs like Viator and Get Your Guide and Klook, et cetera?
Well, I think for us, it's, really focusing in on a particular segment of the activity space and recognizing that within this broader tour and activities group, there are a lot of areas where the needs of the operators are a little more intensive, perhaps, or that it might make it more difficult for them to work with, an OTA that kind of has to be everything to everyone because they don't really fit that model. And so, in terms of our niche, it came really as not a product of trying to focus on water sports and boating activities, but the nature of where we're located and got started in Destin, Florida. So it just so happened that over the years, the majority of our partners and everything we did was developed to cater, to them, that we realized, we were offering something unique to this particular group of operators and that we really needed to kind of double down on that.
What's your take on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo that and say that, we started Captain because we recognized the need in outdoor sports on both sides of our marketplace. So for our adventures, they would go to some of these broader OTAs and have to filter down into, vertical like fishing and, the filters and the functionality weren't quite there for them to, find that perfect experience. And then on the supply side, fishing can be a little bit tricky where, our operators have multiple different types of trips, multiple different boats, inshore, offshore, you name it. But they would go to a lot of these other platforms and they would just ask them to list their trips like something that, is a bit more rigid, like a cooking class or something like that. And so, we feel like we come into, this niche outdoor sports and really check the boxes on both sides.
Melanie, you're different in the way that you guys operate at Virgin Experience Gifts, not in a niche so much as water sports or fishing tours for now, or now it's going to be outdoor experiences. How would you describe, it's hard to imagine Virgin Experience Gifts as niche, but you are. So how would you describe that?
Yeah, our approach is a little bit different for sure. You identified that correctly. So we're unique in that our kind of niche aspect is kind of the segment customer base that we're reaching out to. So it's a unique distribution opportunity for partners where we're actually targeting a different group of customers than they may be targeting themselves. We like to say it's a supplemental customer base where, it's not book and go customers who are buying for themselves. These are gift givers. And that's an entirely different market segment that they may not be reaching on their own. So we're niche in the fact that it's a new customer base. And then from a product perspective, we try to make sure that we're curating highly giftable experiences. So we try to work with the operator partners to make sure that, we're thinking about those gift givers and those gift recipients and making sure that the experiences being offered through our platform are different, giftable, and we like to say extraordinary, but special and unique and something that you would want to receive as a gift.
Hello, it's Marika from the Von Mack Agency here with your Tourism Marketing Half Minute. AI, you guys. Artificial intelligence is rapidly changing the way we do business, and our sector is no exception to the rule. So buckle up and start integrating it into your marketing campaigns sooner than later. Try these prompts. Hey Bard, please scour the web and social media and create my target audience profile. Hey Bard, I'd like you to pull a report of my brand and top 5 competitors with overlap and opportunity. Hey, help me confirm my USPs by assessing my online reviews and giving me a list of the top 10 words mentioned. Okay, you try.
So Rachel, I have a question for you. In terms of the types of products that you're selling, I've been through your website and I know that you focus on water activities. Why would I want to buy water activities specifically from you? I mean, I get why I would want to buy fishing trips from Captain Experiences because fishing is a very specific type of activity where you've got to know the right spots to fish and you need to have the right equipment. You're really relying on the specific guide. But when I think about water activities, I mean, there's any number of different water activities somebody could engage in. What makes what you're doing, what sets you apart, other than just having a lot of water activities that you're selling on your site? What sets you apart from, like, let's just say a Viator that's also selling water activities?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think really the big difference comes on the partner side. On the consumer side, obviously, we see an opportunity to just focus our branding around a particular niche instead of trying to compete against, Viator or some of the much larger companies. But the difference comes on the partner side in the way that we provide our partner service, flexibility of being able to accommodate certain things on the listing. And we have an active, in-house support team that is available to our partners 7 days a week and our customers. And if you think about the nature of water-based activities, they're very variable. I mean, the boats break down, weather changes. There's a lot of customers that have to be moved. And that's not something that a lot of the other OTAs are able to work with. Another thing is the types of information and the knowledge that we have about each of the activities. So if you call our support team, they can tell you, if you can take the wheelchair on the boat, if you have to, if there's a ramp, if there isn't a ramp, just a lot of really detailed information that we've collected over the years to be able to, answer questions that are really specific to, that doesn't come up at a museum, right? There's going to be a ramp and an elevator if there's a certain number of floors. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. And, even from what we do and offering things like, parasailing and boat tours and dolphin tours and boat rentals is very different than the outdoor activities that Jonathan offers and the needs of that segment. And we see that because we offer fishing charters and private charters. but they're a different animal than boat tours and things that you're selling, multi-passenger vessel. So there's even, little segments within what we do that have to be accommodated differently.
I see. So you think that the
Mhm.
audience, there is an audience out there that's specifically looking for an OTA that deals with water activities?
Right. And I think that what we find in our audience in particular, are families, they're in destination, they're searching, they've got, 20 family members with them. They're trying to figure out how to accommodate everybody. They need to get, the most information in the quickest way possible. We provide that by having, a lot of different operators on the site and the ability to, they, take the time to call our team to really find the right one for them in that area, even down to which location is closest to my rental and easiest to park, and so I think for those customers in these beach markets like Destin and Myrtle Beach and Clearwater, we really fit that need.
Yeah, got it.
On that line of thinking, on Bruce's initial question, it was interesting because Rachel, you came back with a response, say it's about the supply side. That's what makes you different. Melanie, you said the demand side because we're looking for gifts. And then Jonathan, you said both sides of the market, which I think it's interesting that you've all three had a different answer. I love the discussion of kind of platform versus niche. Platforms, as everyone knows, kind of rule the world now. Everything we go on the web is all platform based. And the way to beat a platform is niche. That's probably the only way to beat it. But that being said, I just do question on the supply side, what stops Viator is doing really well, as like everyone knows from the recent results. What stops them just tweaking their supply side and getting those tools to work with the supply side? That's kind of on Rachel. And then the stuff you said, Jonathan, they just got to get better categorization, better customization. That stuff's going to come with AI. And then for you, Melanie, what stops Viator from putting a gifting tag and all of a sudden rewriting every product and saying this is for gifting customers and kind of crushing you guys? That's what Viator, that's how platforms should think, right? They don't need to leave a space for the niche. How can you keep your moat?
And that's why we have Christian.
Just an example, right?
This is why we have Christian.
It's a tough question.
That is an awesome question. I'm going to let you take that on first, Melanie.
Okay. Yeah, no, you have an excellent point, Christian, and certainly that's something that we think about. I think it goes back to, obviously, I pointed out that, the big differentiator with us is the demand side and that customer base that we have in the gifting space. But on the partner side, our partner relationships are very important to us. So we craft those very carefully. We take them very seriously. And as I mentioned, we really do focus on the supply that we have with those partners. So we are looking to kind of differentiate the offerings with many of those partners, as I said, to make them extraordinary and really let them stand apart from the offerings that you would maybe see on a traditional OTA like Viator. And really work directly with those partners to make sure that what we're offering is something unique and, as I said, highly giftable. If it's just, a museum tour, that might not be something that, is exciting as a gift if you're a local to New York. But if it's a museum tour and it's got, champagne and lots of add-ons and all of that and packaged in a specific way, that's what we really look to do to try and differentiate our offerings. So I think from us, it's just making sure that we continue to develop those relationships with our partners and work with them directly to make those experiences that we're offering extraordinary to set ourselves apart.
So I want to translate and have a follow-up to that. What I heard you say is at Virgin Experience Gifts, you're really creating unique product designed for gifting. So you are not talking to the same operators, we call the experience creators, in the same way that Viator, et cetera, does. You say, no, we need something different and unique. So you're actually getting different supply, different product than the big guys.
In some cases, yes. We'll work with both, and it depends on the operators and their goals as well. As I said, those relationships are super important. So we'll work with them to understand what they are, looking to gain through partnering with us as well. But for sure, from the very first conversation, we are going to challenge those partners and say, how can we make this giftable? And we're looking for those opportunities to really set that supply apart.
Okay. Do you buy that answer, Christian?
Yes, somewhat. It's IPW next week, and I'm just thinking about me sitting down with 40, just me with 40 resellers, all saying, "Can you give us something different?" And we give them we'll give you like kids half price, and we'll give you kids 40% off. But anyway, I'm interested to hear what the others want to say about the original question as well. Maybe Jonathan, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Yeah, I think there was a lot there. I mean, in terms of differentiation, from the sort of broader platform OTAs, what we hear from our adventurers on the demand side, our demand side customers, as we call them, is that they actively avoid these, quote, touristy platforms like a Viator, like a Get Your Guide, some of these others, because, like I said, they're looking for these off the map experiences. They know that they want to catch a red snapper out of Destin or a tarpon, in Miami or something like that. They don't want to have to deselect Segway tours, wine tastings, museum tickets, things like that, which are obviously great in their own right and maybe even for that same adventure. But in this use case, they're coming to Captain because they know that they can, filter by target species or select a guide that has a restroom on board or a guide that'll clean and fillet their fish for them so that they can go have a catch and cook meal after their trip. So there's really a lot there. And in terms of, the larger OTAs, spoken with a number of them, and they've said, hey, we'll never get into something like this. It's really like trying to, change the direction of a cruise ship, right? Like it's difficult for them to do and devote those resources towards, what they view as a niche. Whereas, Captain, that's our bread and butter, and that's what we're building towards. And then same with, our supply side, our guides. A lot of these sites, they just, like I said, they say, hey, what's your price? How many people can you take? What's your cancellation? And boom, they're off to the races. But we allow our guides the flexibility to set their own deposit and cancellation policies. And then they can select any number of trips with any number of different price points. So a 2-person 4-hour trip is one price. A 6-person 8-hour trip is another price. And then our adventurers can go on the site and book it right there on the spot. Whereas, on some of these other OTAs, that turns into like a messaging back and forth and it's encrypted and, it's just, you're back to square one.
Christian, you buy?
I like the demand side argument
answer?
better than the supply side argument.
Say that again.
I like the demand side argument. I think that's right. And I think that's what, if I don't know if you've read the Platform Revolution, if you guys haven't,
Yep.
It's kind of geeky, but it's a great book, right, Jonathan? And it's probably great for you guys because you need to know why platforms are so powerful. But the demand side of that is strong. I think I want to land on the site and see people holding up a big fish or whatever it is they do, and I feel like that's my place. It's like retail. But the supply side, I just see that as tools. But Rachel's gonna come back on that as well. The supply side, I see Viator and others will keep creating better tools. Yeah, customize the cancellation, all that stuff is fine, but right. I don't see that making the difference.
But Christian, I'm glad that you buy the demand side because, from our perspective, if you win demand, you win supply. All of our guides are working with us to earn more trips, to stay out of the office and out on the water, as we like to say. And so if you win the demand side, the supply will come. And that's what they appreciate. They appreciate that, our adventurers are focused on fishing. They know what they're looking for. And they're not, some of these other groups that maybe don't appreciate what they're doing as much as trips that they might earn elsewhere.
Right.
Rachel, do you even remember the question?
I think so. And I apologize. I lost sound there for a minute. So I missed some of what was just said.
You're good.
But, for us, it's hard. I mean, the simple answer is, Viator can do a lot. On the supply side, which I know isn't what you want to hear about, Christian, but, there would have to be some changes to their policies across the board in order to, offer some of the same things like, no cancellation penalties or, flexibility of changing bookings and things that are kind of unique to these activities, which, might be hard for them to accommodate. And then there's the knowledge of the area, right? And this is something that we're thinking a lot about because the areas that we're in currently, we know very well. Our support team goes and visits our operators. They've been to the parking lots, right? I mean, and those are just things that we're exploring. How do we continue to grow and be able to maintain that? And that's why we, have slowed down and really focused on the markets that we're in. On the supply side, in addition to just the services that we offer, I think at TripShock, we're really thinking about the question of what else can we do for operators, because we've also been very involved in growing the water sports and boating industry. There's our founder has a podcast, there's a water sports forum, and these aren't just for our partners. I mean, this is just to better the industry, to understand insurance and all of these really unique things that are, a lot of big, issues coming up that we need to discuss as an industry. And we've really been playing a role in that. That's not something that a company of our size could do on a big level, right? To accommodate all the types of operators that are out there. And that would be hard for, the big companies to do at the segment level. And so, we really are genuine in the quest to figure out what else we can offer. How can partnering with TripShock grow your direct business, for example, is a question that we are really actively exploring right now.
That's super interesting. And I'll come back to that, or one of the other will come back. Like, how does an OTA grow direct business? Counterintuitive. But I just wanted to point out that one thing you've done at TripShock is you have your own call center. I don't know if you, Melanie, or Jonathan have call centers. I know for sure that the big OTAs don't have call centers that, you can actually call, get a real person right away, get answers to your questions very quickly and accurately. And I know that's a real differentiator, at least for TripShock. And I don't know either of you. And I'll just ask super quick. And then I know Lori has questions she wants to jump in.
Vital's got about 2,000 people on a call center or something like that, Bruce.
But how in depth can they go to answer questions like, is it wheelchair accessible if I go on this boat ride? Or, can I do, et cetera, et cetera? Like, how in depth is that call center versus I made a reservation and I need to cancel or what have you?
Right now, they still have humans, so not in depth, but give it another couple of months, they'll have every answer to every question ever been asked.
I mean, I think at
Christian
the end,
just can't get away from AI, can you?
None of us can.
At the end of the day, Christian asked the question, why can't Viator just go in and do this? And the fact is that they can if they want to. Right? I mean, if they decide that they want to do an offshoot, they'll have one category that they're going to focus on. Maybe they have a separate sort of mini, Viator within Viator that deals with water activities or deals with fishing. It has to make financial sense for them. But I think that, to Rachel's point, this requires, sort of different payment structure, different policies around booking. Do they want to get into that? And also, will that take them away from their core business model, right? Mm-hmm. So they, is it going to be enough? Are they going to get enough ROI on a company like that, or a category like that, to even make sense for them, right? But if they wanted to do it, sure, they could do it, but they're not going to do everything anyway, just because they're big. But one of the things that I wanted to address, Rachel, you touched on it a little bit when you talked about sort of what you're doing apart from just selling the product, the podcast, et cetera. Jonathan, I wanted to know if you do anything specifically around sort of building a sense of community within your organization. How do you do that? Do you use, user-generated content? What are you doing that's kind of getting your customers to come together to really build your company and build your opportunity?
Just really quick clarification. Is your question about the operators on the platform or the consumer?
Both.
I think I have an answer that addresses both. And, first off, just catching up on Christian's point on call centers. Yeah, we have a small but mighty team of 10 people currently. And yeah, we have 3 on the operations side that are answering adventure calls and guide calls. And so, yeah, and they're here in the office with us. They're passionate about fishing and understand all the questions that might arise. Do I want to bring bait casting reels or will I be fishing with spinning reels? I think someone on the Viator team or some of these others might not be that well versed in terms of fishing and the sport. And then on the question of sorry, Lori, I got caught up there, but what was
community
the question again? Oh, right, on community.
What are you doing to build sort of your sense of community? Are you using user generated content from both an operator side and a customer side? What are you doing to kind of foster a sense of community within Captain Experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I think the table stakes there are reviews, but one unique wrinkle with Captain is that we have these 100% verified reviews. So, the current status quo is that people might go and read Google reviews or Facebook reviews. But a lot of those reviews, you don't know if they're, genuine. They could be left by, Captain Bobby's, brother, cousin, or, drinking buddy for that matter, who's never been on the water with them. But with Captain, we email and text you after booking a QR code. So you just show up at the docks, your guide takes a picture of that QR code, payment transfers automatically. And that way we can ensure that those are 100% verified reviews on the trip that took place on that date because the adventure and guide met for that QR code to be scanned. And so that's a real value add, for our adventurers and for our guides. And then the other piece on community is, user generated content. We do everything that we can there. I mean, these trips naturally sort of lend themselves to, the big grip and grin pictures of families catching fish with our guides. But then also, all of the smaller things, like getting out there on the water, running out there 50 miles an hour on a boat with the wind in your face. Those pictures are always fun. Things like that about the broader experience. And then the last piece is, and so we, sort of repurpose those in our newsletter and things like that to show people others that are getting out on the water. And then the last piece I wanted to touch on are fishing reports. So, our guides on a weekly basis are sending in written fishing reports, photos, and videos. Those populate our blogs, and then our adventurers can go and read those via the newsletter and via search to see, which of the professional guides are catching what where.
So,
Cool.
Lori, if you were consulting for Jonathan, would you recommend they go the community route? And is that because Brian Chesky said it last week? Is that why you got on the? I don't get the Airbnb community thing. I don't know if you do, but would?
No, I do get that.
Idea?
I get that because what
Do you?
he's doing there, not to segue into Airbnb, because it feels like that's all we talk about other than ChatGPT. But the thing with what Brian Chesky is trying to do is similar to what they do with Hostel World, where basically, you kind of say, okay, your host is a musician and loves to do XYZ. People staying with you in the same house, because he's into the whole room thing now, is, people that are, this one likes cooking. Oh, this person also likes music. So basically bringing people together of the same interest. And it's a similar kind of thing they do with Hostel World. Same idea. Oh, meet your fellow, whatever, your fellow residents that will be staying with you during the same time. So that's basically what he's trying to do there. I'm saying with Jonathan, I mean, I feel like his opportunity is extremely niche because it's very much, at least at this point, maybe when you venture outside into the more outdoor experience space, it'll be less niche. But I feel like, with the fishing piece of it, that's obviously very niche, right? So, and also I can completely see that people who are into that are really into it. Want to know where to fish, want to see the big pictures, want to watch or rather read the blogs. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to foster a sense of community. And they start traveling with Jonathan, they start fishing with them, they want to keep fishing with them. But I do have one very important question, Jonathan, and that is, what makes a damn good guide?
Yeah, so that goes back to one of our cultural pillars, which is make it personal. And so we're always thinking about ways to make it personal. And we actually just ran a focus group 2 weeks ago with our last round's lead investor, Bullish, out of New York. So they're a venture fund, and then on the other side they're also a branding agency. So we ran a focus group, and what our adventurers were telling us is that they want to know more about the guides. They were saying things like, hey, these are expensive trips. You're out on the water. You're not seeing another human for, 8 hours or so. That's a long time to be out there if, your guide turns out to be grumpy or, rude, or on the flip side, it completely enhances the experience if, they've got hilarious jokes all day and you're able to build a connection. And so we want to, go deeper into those guide personalities of our damn good guides and show them, hey, how we can highlight that with, like some question and answer stuff, favorite sports team, how we even, jumped on this call before we started recording, things like that to really build that personal connection. But our damn good guides, they're earning quality reviews, they're accepting trips, in a timely manner, and then they're just being sort of great ambassadors for Captain and for the sport of fishing.
I want to jump in here. One, regarding community, you mentioned it fairly briefly, Rachel, but TripShock has done an amazing job of creating community because of the Awkward Water Sports Guys podcast that Greg, your CEO, and Kevin O'Neill, one of your lead operators, do. And if any of you out there are interested in learning more, hearing more about water sports, it's a great podcast. And I know there's a big community there that they've built just from that. And then, of course, now year 3, I believe, of the Water Sports Forum, an annual event that brings everyone together this year. Thank you. It's co-located at Arrival. We're psyched about that, but a way to bring it together there. So I do think that TripShock is a good model of how you've created a community around the operator side, not the consumer side. Bigger question, starting with you, Melanie. Demand. Like, everyone is, if you go and you search things to do in Florida, New York, blah, 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 we all know that Viator and Get Your Guide buy the keywords. And that's what's always going to come up first in almost all cases. They even, they have a lot of tricks around keyword marketing, so SEO and SEM. How do you, and I'm starting with you, Melanie, but I want answers from each of you. How do you get demand? Like, Virgin is an amazing brand. It's one of the probably leading brands in all of tourism globally. Virgin Experience Gifts USA, not so much. You have a challenge ahead of you. One reason you have Lori on your team, for example. So how are you getting demand to come to you? And you've been at this for 8 years now, prior at a different brand. But now you have the brand of Virgin behind you. But I still don't know how you're getting people to come to your site and buy your gifts.
Yeah. That's where the niche element of our business comes into play. So actually an advantage for us, maybe over, Captain Experiences and TripShock, is that we are in that gifting space. So there is a whole brand new set of keywords that we get to bid on. Now, mind you, the competition is very high, because when you start going into the gifting space, well, suddenly we're competing against physical gifts as well. So gifting occasions come up. Mother's Day we just had. Father's Day is kind of like a little mini Super Bowl for us in our business. Those are times when we're really going to kind of spend more in our search and SEO and PPC, and really kind of capitalize on those gifting terms. So for us, it is a lot of search demand that we're still relying on, alongside some work that we're doing to create category awareness in the United States around experience gifting. That is something that we don't really have here in the US, but is pretty globally popular and well accepted. Our sister company, Virgin Experience Days in the UK, is a major household name. There are some other experience gifting brands globally as well that have that category awareness. So we're working on building that in the United States through kind of a push effort, through influencer campaigns and various different efforts. But how do we drive customers to our site? It's still through search, but we are really focusing on that gifting space. So unique gifts for mom in New York, or we're riding a little bit of a wave in the fact that experiences are becoming more popular, and we're seeing that trending, and that's kind of what people are looking for, Gen Z and millennials for sure. So we have that to working to our advantage. But for us, it's really the niche part of our business is what's helping us with that, where we actually get to tap into a whole different space. We're not necessarily competing against the likes of Viator.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Search volume.
That's, to me, that's brilliant. Great answer. Thank you. And I'm sure that when you all are at IPW, that's the message, right? Like, how are you different? That you're working on the keywords related to gifting. Like, I'm sure you have a whole graduation campaign going right now. Talk about Gen Y and Gen Z. What does your college grad want, or even your high school grad want for an experience? So super interesting perspective, and yes, unique and niche, right? Rachel, what about you guys?
Well, I think for us, a lot of it comes down to location. We're able to get very granular in terms of the location that different searches are occurring. And if you think about the nature of the customer who's searching, for things to do in a destination that maybe they haven't been to, and they want to see all their options, and they're looking a week or two in advance and planning, that's not our customer. Our customer is booking the majority of them within 48 hours. They're there, they're looking for very specific things a lot of the time. And so because we're smaller and, have so much in these little niche, like beach markets, even the distance between Fort Walton Beach and Destin on a map isn't that far. But it's like going to a whole new destination, and it's right up the street, and we're able to really, I think, focus in on that when it comes to search terms.
Yeah, but how? Like, what do you mean focus in on it? So what's a real-time example?
Well, geographic based searches for specific terms within a market, and those things are very variable. So for example, we might have ads, if we know it's going to rain tomorrow in Destin, our ad spend changes. We're watching the weather. We're trying to anticipate whether we're going to have cancellations and things of that nature. And again, it's a challenge. How do we grow that? But right now, I think we're able to be much more nimble. I don't think that, Viator is watching, the weather in Key West and on a very regular basis updating their buying, their ad acquisition. So, and we're able to do that. But I think bigger picture, we're trying to focus on ways to grow demand outside of, paid ads, and growing this brand around a particular set of activities that we have a much better chance at being able to do that, and being known for this one thing, or at least this one thing in these particular areas. So we'll see. But right now, I think our flexibility and able to just really drill down on Google really makes a difference.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same, in terms of top of funnel, it's, it's SEO, it's paid search, focusing on, these locations and on fishing trips. But then, the other piece, and I know that Brian Chesky talks a lot about this with Airbnb, but I think they're somewhat famous for not having a rewards program, right? He just says, hey, if you build a great product, people will come back to it. And yeah, last year, over 20% of our trips were word of mouth and repeat bookings. And so, yeah, we really feel like our adventures are coming back to Captain because we have a unique experience that's a bit elevated in terms of our niche that others, don't currently facilitate. And so that gives them reason enough to come back. And then it all sort of flows together. If you're able to book, 2 trips from that same customer that others are acquiring through paid and only getting 1 trip out of, well, then you can leapfrog them and afford to acquire that customer at a higher cost, because on the tail end, their LTV is also higher. So I think it's all one big sort of thing. And so, yeah, just acquiring people through those traditional means, and then trying to nurture them into booking repeat trips by providing a great experience, staying top of mind with newsletter and things of that nature, fishing reports, and keeping the flywheel going. But
real quick, for really all 3 of you, primarily, I think Jonathan and Rachel, but also you might also have a plan for this, Melanie. What's your percentage of repeat versus first-time users? You have just a ballpark?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, for us is that, again, like last year, over 20% of our bookings were word of mouth and repeats. So,
20%,
yeah, feeling
including
like
word of mouth. Rachel?
Greg just sent me updated numbers on this, and I forget what the new one was, but I think in terms of return customers, I think we're just over 20%, but I'd need to confirm that.
Okay, but about the same. Melanie?
I apologize. I had myself muted for some dog barking that was happening, but yeah, ours is around the same. We have a little bit of a unique situation where we have a double customer, right? So we have our gift givers who purchase, and then we have our gift recipients as well, who we then encourage to come back as repeat customers. So those numbers are a little muddied, but it's probably around the same and definitely something that we're focusing on.
That is really interesting. Who's your customer? The gift purchaser or the gift taker? Both.
Both, hopefully.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and they could both be repeats. So
yeah,
interesting opportunity. Yeah.
Bruce, I'd love to just ask one question. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but how do you balance the wish to grow with, the need to continue to be niche, right? So you're a niche company, but you're obviously wanting to grow. And so how do you balance kind of, okay, we're going to do that next thing. Like Jonathan, now you're talking about doing outdoor sports, so where do you stop so that you can remain to be that niche company that you're so proud of?
Yeah,
Maybe we'll start with Jonathan.
Sure. I'd say you just have to, listen to your customer. And so, again, on this focus group call, there was an individual, Rebecca, and we asked this question about expanding into other verticals. And she said, hey, any time that there is someone with expertise in the outdoors, that, will host us on a guided experience, we want to leverage their expertise and make the most of that. And so we're on board with wherever you're looking to expand to. And so, yeah, I think just staying true to that outdoors adventure and being able to, as we say, unlock the outdoors for them. I think sky's the limit within, that sort of frame.
What about you, Mel?
Again, the gifting industry is huge. It's a market that's estimated at about $13 billion annually. So there's a lot of room for us to grow here. There's a lot of market share for us to tap into. Again, we're competing against traditional sweaters here. So there is a lot of headspace for us to grow into, so long as we continue to, really make sure that our supply is top notch and extraordinary.
And Rachel?
This is a question we ask ourselves constantly. And, I don't know that we have all of the answers right now. We want to focus and make sure that we're able to grow the markets that we're in to get them to the size that we're seeing in the Panhandle, which is where we've been for, 15 years. And if we feel like that we can serve these other beach markets in the same way, we'll start to look beyond that, and having the call center really does limit in certain ways our expansion in terms of, we want to man at certain hours in the destinations that the customers are in. And so that creates a barrier that we have to really commit to if we want to go somewhere on the West Coast. So I definitely think we're going to be focused on, the Central and Eastern time zones for that reason, until we feel really confident again that we're addressing, those needs. And then thinking about what is it about those destinations that's unique, and do we go into lake markets, right? That's very different from a beach market. And so we're really just focusing in on what we know we do well. And then from there, we'll start to explore, how we can, expand the business.
There's a lot of water out there.
There's a lot of water.
I think that's the right.
What about ponds?
That's right though. The Laurie's question and then your insistence on definitions, Bruce. But I think it's important to define your niche really, because it's a slippery slope, right? And as soon as you go outside of that niche, you kind of lost it and you become a broadband OTA. And I think there's a lot of smaller OTAs that don't really have answers to some of these questions. I think you guys actually, I'm a bit disappointed that you've answered most of them quite well and hold your ground, because platforms are difficult. And the unfortunate thing is, I think they leave spaces around the edges for niche, but at any point in time, as Laurie said, if there's enough money there, they can make a quick pivot or start up a quick unit. But last question I want to ask is, because you've all got specialization of information, and you know where I'm going with this. How do you not get crushed by AI? Because that's what AI does. It's got all the specialized information that you have today, or if not today, tomorrow. How do you keep your moat around this AI wave that's coming, which everyone's going to have their hands on, and they can use that obviously to come into your niche without needing to put resources into it? And should we make this a quick answer, Bruce? How short a time?
No, go ahead. I got it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say two things. One, AI is only as powerful as the data that is, behind it. And so really AI in order to really leverage that technology, at least, it's my understanding that you need these deep and unique data sets. And I think, as a niche operator, that's the name of the game, right? So we are entitled to our own data on, which kind of adventures from where, booking what kind of trips, when, all that good stuff. And so I think that we can, use AI to our benefit to help match our adventures and our guides. And then the other piece more broadly is that I think, in the experiences space, I think it's a unique space where, it's experiences. You can't have AI going out on a trip and, knowing exactly what that's like. They're just parsing data on the web that they're finding. But I still think that user generated content is far more valuable than the X's and O's of some, written, data AI output on, what a fishing trip is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the user generated content. And I think it also assumes that this information that we have about our partners exists somewhere online. And I wish it did, because it would be a lot easier for our team to get it, all the information that we like to have on a partner, compile it and organize it. And it's very difficult for us to get all the information we have because it doesn't exist online. And in water sports in particular, you've got a lot of operators who've been around for a very long time, and their website is a landing page, and they're just there's a lot of operators are catching up and expanding their digital presence, but there are a lot that haven't and might not for a while. So you're going to get very limited information if you're just looking at what's available online.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what both Jonathan and Rachel said there. I think, from our perspective, we're going to have to, consider the ways that AI could help and benefit our business and how we can utilize it to stay competitive. As you said, Christian, we don't want to get left behind. But also, from that data perspective and from that relationships perspective, continuing to make sure that we're differentiating ourselves with our partners on our supply side, and, making sure we maintain those relationships on that end, and then looking at, on the demand side, how can we use AI to keep ourselves relevant with some of the competitors and what they're doing out there.
Christian, any follow-up to the answers, or?
No, I'm just disappointed how good the answers have been. I don't feel like I've had enough to come back on and argue against. But I love this.
Great guests, I guess.
Yeah, that's what happens, I guess.
I am
think
very
it's been a great discussion.
that Christian did not have a problem with you telling him, Rachel, that you couldn't find the information online, because generally speaking.
Well, let me make one point on that then. So it's great you've got user generated anything, but if it's user generated, it is online, and if you've published it, it's available. It's been crawled, or anybody can actually just crawl it and use that.
I'm talking more specifically about accessibility questions, the parking instructions, and things like that we are specifically gathering about our tours. That, like I say, I wish we could just pull it from their website. That would be a beautiful thing, but that is very rarely the case. That everything we need and collect exists on their site and is available.
If they publish it on TripShop.com, Christian, doesn't that immediately become publicly available to someone else?
There's a massive problem with this user-generated stuff, though, as well, right? If we get down to the parking lot example that Rachel used earlier, you know, there's lots of user generated stuff, but there's opinions on there, and an AI trying to read through opinions and come out with a single answer is not good. It's problematic for at least the medium term. So there is space to hold on to there for a while. I think that's a good response.
Great. Well, one more question to wrap up this session. Great session. Thank you all. Really, really appreciate it. I'm going to ask one speed question, if you will. You get one sentence to reply. And I don't want you to think about your company, but just niche OTAs in general. So tell me in one sentence how you say niche OTAs have an advantage over general OTAs in our space. Clear on the question? Yeah. Okay. Melanie, I'll let you go first. How do niche OTAs have an advantage over the large global OTAs in the experiences industry?
Boy, tough question. No, I think that the big differentiator for niche OTAs is just that they are able to differentiate and become experts in a certain area, whether that's on the demand or supply side or a location or the experience types. It's becoming experts in their niche.
Rachel, different answer, same question.
She took my answer.
You're not going to give the same answer.
Thanks for letting me go first.
Yeah, I think that, you know, drilling down, I guess, a little bit more on that is the type of service that a niche is able to provide both to the customer and to the supplier to address a specific need that is unique to that segment.
Great. And Jonathan?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say focus. So I think Melanie said, you know, expert, Rachel said service, and I would just say focus and, you know, kind of tie a bow on that. I think, you know, what sets us apart is, you know, our focus on gifts, our focus on water sports, our focus on outdoor sports, you know, whatever it is, these OTAs sort of overlook that or just lump it in as a platform, whereas we're able to go a little bit deeper thanks to that.
Excellent. Once again, great answers. You guys were great. Awesome session. Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Last.
Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Show 20 is in the books and it'll be available soon. So great to talk to you all.